When it comes to the improvements that the WWE has made under Triple H, the first thing that comes to mind is the characters and how they're allowed to be themselves, how they're given directions that make sense. Heel turns and face turns don't just happen on a whim anymore. There is real build-up and a clear path of how they reach that point emotionally. Of course, this does not apply to everyone. The product hasn't been perfect. Some wrestlers haven't really been stellar despite the time or the material that has been given to them, whereas others are constantly over and still doing great work, but the booking just does not do them any favors. But it's been a net positive to say the least. So in this video, I picked out 5 of WWE's top heels on a basis of recency, as well as who will be the focus of the product for the next few months up to a year, and decided to do an analysis and thorough breakdown for each of them, starting with AJ Styles. For someone who has had a Hall of Fame career both in and outside of WWE, AJ's booking for the last few years hasn't been the greatest. That didn't really change until as recently as May of 2024. 2023 was also mostly a lackluster year for AJ. He was supposed to team up with John Cena in a very cool moment to go up against the Bloodline at the Fastlane event of that year, but for some reason the WWE wrote him out of the story as LA Knight subbed in as John Cena's partner. AJ would take time off and only return in December of 2023, attacking the Bloodline, but also in a twist, blindsiding LA Knight, signaling his heel turn or at least a tweener character. It seemed as though this character was going to be something deep and long term, but that was kinda not the case. After a Fatal 4-Way match at the Royal Rumble, where he was the one to be pinned, AJ would continue in the direction of a very heated single feud against LA Knight. The feud culminated at WrestleMania 40 where AJ would lose clean. Despite the promising start, this character really did not go anywhere. And things did not get much better when he did earn a championship match against Cody Rhodes and had a very impressive match, but once again went on to lose in a rather obvious manner. However, it seems that AJ's new character is finally starting to hit his stride, because on the May 24th episode of SmackDown, a new storyline would kick off as AJ practically pleaded Nick Aldis to grant him one more shot at the championship, which Aldis refused. A clear theme of this new storyline is that AJ was running out of time as an active wrestler. This part in particular is not completely storyline. AJ has stated in many interviews since a long time ago that he's getting close to retiring. He says that he doesn't want to put on matches that make people think he's losing his touch. Also adding that the damage that his body has taken over the years hasn't been light. All of this is quite real, so it added a lot of substance to AJ's new character. A week later, a segment was announced where AJ was to address his future. Throughout the show too, he showed a respectful attitude towards even his enemies like LA Knight, making it seem like he was genuine. And of course, Cody also came out to celebrate with AJ, seeing as they had a very significant match just a month ago. But then in a predictable yet brilliant twist, AJ would attack Cody, revealing the entire retirement angle to have been a complete ruse just to provoke Cody into giving him his match, and thus decisively turning heel. The main driving force behind this heel turn is without a doubt the desperation that he felt. This is the one area where Triple H's booking shines. More often than not, there is a clear theme. The why is explained very well. AJ genuinely does not have much time left performing at the standard that he set for himself. It works because it's real. If Aldis just gave him a rematch, he wouldn't have to resort to this. But alas, this is what things have come to. As of the making of this video, the Clash at the Castle event of 2024 has already concluded, and AJ Styles lost to Cody Rhodes in an I Quit match in rather embarrassing fashion. He has also been announced for the destination show of Noah Pro Wrestling as part of the international collaborations that WWE is doing, so I think this is the end of the character for now. It isn't a slow burn like Roman Reigns or Drew McIntyre, and that's okay. It served its purpose as a foil to Cody Rhodes, and as that there isn't too much to analyze. So with that being said, the next one is Gunther. Definitely one of the more straightforward characters, I'd say. The one word to describe him is domination. His character is rooted in treating pro wrestling like a life or death sport. Gunther, I'd say, is like 75% of the way a heel. He does play the role of the antagonist in his matches. This is evident in his promo work. There is a heavy emphasis on using disrespectful and sharp insults. He's shown that he isn't above using low-hanging fruit jabs. He did this against The Miz as well as Jey Uso. But he isn't a villain per se. He isn't evil or slimy by nature. Especially in his matches, his characteristics as a heel only stem from the fact that he's willing to do whatever is needed to win. Such as when he did a fake tap out to free himself from Sheamus' cloverleaf submission, or when he specifically targets an injured body part of his opponent the moment he realizes they're vulnerable in that area. A babyface wouldn't do something like this, but Gunther does. Inside the ring, nothing is off limits to him as long as they count as tactics. Gunther's gimmick is that he has no gimmick. He's just a pure wrestler who hates the entertainment aspect of the industry, which he thinks is ruining the prestige of the sport. Drew McIntyre. Okay, so I've made a whole video specifically covering Drew, so I'm not going to waste too much time on this. As a heel character, McIntyre's defining trait is anger or obsession. The loss he took at the Clash at the Castle was a traumatic experience he pretty much never got over. And what enrages him even more is the fact that people like Cody and Seth are quick to play diplomats and feel sorry for the likes of Jey Uso when they don't even deserve it. It makes him feel like he's the only one keeping it real in the company. Drew's story is essentially the classic trope of becoming the monster yourself when you set out to fight the monster. His obsession with the bloodline, as well as wanting to prove himself right, went too far that he became the very thing he set out to destroy. And this is costing him everything. He once again lost that Clash at the Castle because he prioritized his hatred for CM Punk before everything else. He felt wronged by everyone and it drove him to the point of insanity. He wants quote-unquote justice for himself so badly, and he is getting in his own way now because he obsesses over that at the expense of literally everything else. And it seems like his spiral into madness is only going to get worse in his upcoming feud against CM Punk. If you want to see my full detailed breakdown, please check out my real video on Drew McIntyre, but for this video I'll leave it at that. Chad Gable. Probably my favorite character on this list, and also the most tragic character. To paint a picture of what Chad Gable's character is, it's like those evil Goku and evil Superman what-if timelines where something goes terribly wrong in a seemingly simple journey of the hero, and he loses something important to him, and that just makes him crash out completely. Gable's WWE career hasn't been the most consistent thing ever. He's been part of the roster for a very long time and has been putting in work for years on top of years, but as a wrestler, considering his style and stature, it's not exactly a surprise that Vince's regime didn't really have a place for him. Gable had spent most of his time in the WWE as sort of an enhancement B-level heel. Him and his faction Alpha Academy for the better part of their run were used as minions on Raw for babyfaces to fight. But in 2023, they started getting over with the fans as lovable, not very serious characters that just put on sleeper hits week to week. Both Gable and Otis are exceptional wrestlers, and they also have great comedic timing. Combine that with a likable, charming new addition to the team in the form of Maxine Dupree, and you have a formula that just works. Chad Gable and his crew had an interaction with Gunther's Imperium on the July 31st episode of Raw, which ended up in Gunther and Gable engaging in a 5-minute beat the clock match. Gable would pull off an upset. It wasn't exactly a loss for Gunther, but he was unable to beat Gable in 5 minutes as he had boasted he would. The match was however resumed on the spot where Gunther did beat Gable decisively. This brief encounter generated enough fan interest to where it felt like this may be a long-term story for Gable as he starts to pursue the belt more seriously. And this was proven correct when come August 7, 2023, Gable found himself in a fatal 4-way match with Ricochet, Riddle, and Tommaso Ciampa that determined the next opponent for Gunther. Gable would go on to win this match, and his dynamic with Gunther is clear, a very classic David and Goliath story. So in the following week, they had a great match where Gable once again clutched a very close count-out victory, and thus they needed to have one more match. Their amazing blow-off match would come on the 4th of September, and this match provided the foundation that Chad Gable's character would be built on later. Because despite his best efforts, Chad Gable lost, the sight of him losing making his daughter cry. This match was so good that months after it took place, people were still into the prospect of Gable and Gunther being the direction for WrestleMania 40. This storyline would be on hold until March, when Gable found himself in a gauntlet match to qualify for a match at WrestleMania. He even made video packages to iron out his character work. By all means, this was his story. He was the clear favorite and the logical pick to win. However, he lost. Again, not only did he lose, he also did not even have the Iron Man performance in the match. That, as well as the win itself, went to Sami Zayn. Although this decision worked out fine in retrospect, at the time people did not like this outcome at all. It felt like they missed a very easy layup. As Sami and Gunther's story kicked off, Gable also had a role in the story. He played the part of the well-meaning but strict coach type that you often see in boxing movies. And at WrestleMania 40, to the shock of many, Sami actually beat Gunther, and Gable just watched on. Was he happy that his disciple went the distance? After his victory, Sami gave Gable a chance, and the two battled it out on Raw. A friendly match, nothing crazy. But after the match, as Gable once again failed, and Sami stood victorious and celebrated with his wife, Gable would snap and rip Sami out of his wife's embrace, tearing apart the hugging couple with a German suplex and just tweaked out. It's the visual of Sami celebrating with his family, the very visual that he dreamed of but could not capture. That's what sent him over the edge. This is one of Triple H's best written character arcs if you ask me. It's like the correct timeline is the one where we had a simple journey. Gable gets the fairy tale ending at WrestleMania and celebrate with his family. This is the what if dark timeline. The main theme of this character is jealousy. Sami's success reflected Gable's failures and he just could not take it. Gable has also turned into an abusive character now, with the way he treats Maxine and Otis. This can be interpreted as projection, the remnants of his old self. Initially, I believe this character had many legs, like Otis transforming into a Vader character. But on that front, they have already gone with the more conventional route, with Otis being the one to stand up to Gable instead. Not only that, Gable has yet to capture the IC title either. To add even more confusion to the story, he has most recently been targeted by the newly debuted Wyatt 6, led by the brother of the late Bray Wyatt, Bo Dallas. I'm honestly not a fan of how convoluted this has become. A potential alliance between Gable and the Creed brothers has been teased many times, and I think getting that out of the way early and just giving him the belt would have been a much better choice. Don't get me wrong, both can still happen, but sometimes things kind of lose their impact when you drag it for too long, but I digress. For now, an abusive Chad Gable, unable to capture the IC title, abandoned by the Alpha Academy, and destroyed by the Wyatt 6 is where the story has been left off. And the last but not least for this video is The Rock. Gotta save the final boss for last, right? The Rock officially turned heel on the WWE WrestleMania 40 press conference in Las Vegas back in February, aligning with Roman Reigns and revealing himself as this power-hungry corporate overlord. And that's essentially what his character is. The Rock is a TKO board member in real life, and the kayfabe character also makes mention of this like some meta aspect, such as when Cody addressed The Rock as his boss, or when The Rock threatened a WWE referee in his match during WrestleMania 40 because, well, he can. The new bloodline, presumably led by The Rock, can be viewed as being even more evil than the original bloodline led by Roman. Because if Roman Reigns is portrayed like an abusive, controlling person who turned out the way he did because of his trauma, The Rock is like a more brutal individual, completely devoid of the sympathetic element. It's pretty obvious if you pay attention to the way the story is going. The Rock is most likely going to expel Roman and the Usos from the new bloodline. Matter of fact, this was hinted at even during the build to WrestleMania 40, such as when The Rock vowed to make Cody Rhodes walk out a loser at WrestleMania 40, but suspiciously looked at Roman Reigns every time he said the word loser. This could be looking too deep into things, but Triple H is very detail-oriented, so I would not rule it out. With this in mind, we can infer just how unhinged this final boss character is. Nothing seems to be off limits for him, from expelling his own family, to heinously beating up Cody Rhodes, and even threatening his mother. If characters like Chad Gable, Drew McIntyre, AJ Styles, and even Roman Reigns were forced to become who they are because of unfortunate events, someone like The Rock is just genuinely evil. And this character works because, as things stand, Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes are the two characters who complete the other half of the final boss. Both of them are, or will be, white-hot babyfaces, so if you think about the dynamic, it makes sense for their big destination match villain to be completely evil and ruthless as opposed to a sympathetic tweener. So that's it. That was my analysis of the current top heel acts on the WWE roster. If you have any video requests, be it wrestling or anime, feel free to let me know. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. See you guys.